Very delightful morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. It's Tuesday edition and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the very beautiful city of Akwa Ibom State. My name is Francis Oyima Edet and I'm excited to be here with you this morning. Of course, the atmosphere in Nigeria, anticipations coming from the planned nationwide strike from the organized labor, talking about the NLC and the TUC happening today. Of course, just this morning, we see that the federal government is planning to meet with the labor unions. This is after the presidency had yesterday issued a comment that has been widely criticized as far as the labor stance and the federal government stance is concerned. As a reaction to that, many have asked whether the federal government is in support of what happened in Imo State, where under the directive or through the directive of Hope Uzodinma, the re-elected governor of Imo State, the leader of the NLC, President Joe Ajero, was manhandled during a statewide strike action to protest the welfare of staffs or workers in Imo State. These and many more issues are going to be a part of Talking Nigeria this morning on Rise and Shine.
Good morning. My name is Uyai Anek, and it's a beautiful Tuesday morning to be alive. A great day to rise and shine. Of course, we are doing that from one beautiful hill somewhere in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria, and we are going to talk Nigeria. It's good to set the narrative. It's good to hear the thoughts of Nigerians. That's why I would like for you to take advantage of our social media platforms and our phone lines that will be intermittently displayed on your screen during the course of this 2-hour breakfast show brought to you by Spectrum Television. We'd like to know, what are your thoughts? As Francis has rightly said, the NLC moved as of midnight tonight, today rather, to start a nationwide strike as a result of the impasse that happened between the Imo State government, Imo State governor, the labor union in Imo State, and the chairman of the NLC, Joe Ajero. This move has been made. What are your thoughts? Do you think that the NLC is making a good move with this at this time? But of course, we have a plethora of things we will be talking to you about on Rise and Shine this morning. We'd like for you to stay glued to Spectrum Television and Rise and Shine this morning. Take advantage. You can interact with us. You can engage us on the conversation. You can send in your questions. You can send in your concerns. That way we are doing this together, not just from this end. Of course, we also see some of the stories that we have for you this morning. The president has ordered the withdrawal of police escorts and detail to VIPs in the country. For some time, we have been hearing this part is about to be implemented. And we also see the fact that 264 Nigerians were denied visas on arrival in Saudi Arabia. Why would this have happened? These are some of the conversations we have on the front burner of Rise and Shine this morning. Of course, a very sad story that we see. High fares in Enugu State is forcing citizens in the state to trek long distances. The cost of living has gone up, transportation fares. Some can literally not afford it. We also see here that the federal government is threatening labor with contempt charge. Of course, we see that the NLC is adamant and they've decided to move on with their strike. These are some of the issues that we have on the front burner. Very funny this morning. We're also talking about the fact that APC chairman is alleging that President Tinubu is no longer accessible to APC leaders. This one is a really funny twist at this time, okay? We also see that the federal government is moving to stop excessive borrowing by the state government. And so far, so good. The conversations around the off-season election is not over. Yesterday, Senator Diodere was declared the winner of the 2023 off-cycle election in Bayelsa State. Where does that leave Timmy Silva? A lot of people are asking him to act like his elder statesman, Goodluck Jonathan, and just congratulate Diri. Okay, these are some of the conversations we have for you on Rise and Shine. We'll take that quick breather, and when we come, we'll delve right into our flash stories.
Rise and Shine. Rise and Shine.
course, rise and shine this morning, and we are hitting it right on the head. According to the president, we want to hit the ground running this morning. But there is a directive from the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to withdraw all police escorts and police detail that had hitherto been assigned to any VIPs in the country. We see this move being made and the announcements being released yesterday. Of course, at some point in the country earlier this year, there was that particular, that conversation, there was that rumor was going around that the president's IGP, Egbetokun, was going to move to make sure that details on VIPs, celebrities, and all of those things were withdrawn. But it looks like it's about time for us to see implementation with that particular news. Of course, we saw the Minister of State for Police Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, revealing that the Police High Command will execute President Bola Tinubu's directive for the withdrawal of police personnel from VIP security duties and developing a community policing strategy, among others. The minister made the development, of course, clear to us at a 2-day management retreat at the Ministry of Police Affairs. Now, the Nigeria Police Force and the Ministry of Police Affairs were at a critical juncture and are currently struggling with the consequences of decades of neglect that have hindered their ability to fulfill their constitutional mandate. Of course, the ministry is also committed to aligning its efforts to contribute to the realization of Mr. President's vision for a renewed, highly effective Nigerian police force. But of course, here we're seeing that this withdrawal is going to be made. VIPs, celebrities and all of that are no longer going to be having police escorts with them around the country. But I think the first question this morning will be, what does this mean for VIPs? I think, to a very large extent, some of them have legit reasons for why they have police detail following them. And when the Nigerian Police Force says they are going to work on, indigenous policing system, does this mean that we can somehow swap members of the Nigerian Police Force for internally generated security for these VIPs?
Well, I would say this is a welcome development for most Nigerians. I mean, for the longest times, we've had a few members of the society described as the later VIP or the well-to-do, utilizing truckloads of policemen to secure themselves at the detriment of Nigerians who can barely have enough manpower. Of course, when you look at the different police formation across Nigeria, you would always hear the story that, oh, we do not have enough manpower, we do not have enough personnel to, attend to the different responsibilities that is constitutionally mandated for the Nigerian police force to do. But when you turn around and look at the entourage of politicians, for instance, you find one politician going around with truckloads of police officers, 12, 14, 18, as the numbers keeps increasing. You look at celebrities, it's the same thing. You look at just anybody who is, anybody coming into Nigeria. I mean, even look at some expats or some persons who wear the tag of, expatriates coming into Nigeria. You find police personnel, you find the military personnel being attached to them as police detail or security detail. And then you ask, in a country where we are having a whole lot of issues with insecurity, in a country where we do not have enough manpower to look into the security challenges, and then the few that we have, the inadequate hands that we have are still being deployed to take care of a few at the detriment of Nigerians, it doesn't show wisdom, it doesn't show professionalism. Nigerians have been calling for this to be changed, the narrative to be changed. And also don't forget, one of the reasons why some members of the society who have a way with all would act like demigods on the road is because they have security details. One reason why they will mistreat the next person is because they have these security details. I mean, even the celebrities themselves. We cannot forget in a hurry the incident that happened in the Lagos, lounge, where a husband was allegedly shot by a security detail just because the celebrity wanted to have a way with the man's wife. And of course, the man reacted to defend his honor and that of his family. So a lot of incidents have happened as a result of these details that are being attached, and not forgetting that some of these policemen, because of the extra bucks they make from whoever they're being attached to, also do the extra things. They go the extra miles just to attempt to please their the people that have been posted to We've seen video footages of Nigerian police personnel, the Nigerian military personnel, being reduced to maids, carrying bags in the market for ordinary individuals, going to shop for ordinary individuals. These were not under the provisions of the constitutional provisions for the duties of Nigerian security personnel. So it is downgrading the force. It is reducing the image of the force. And so doing something like this, if the federal government actually gets the will to implement it, and then we see these security details, both the army, the police, and all the security details being withdrawn, two things is going to happen. These group of Nigerians or expatriates or foreigners coming into the country would understand that security is paramount, yes. But then, of course, there is another aspect that will be opened up. In Nigeria, there are licensed security firms opening up here and there. And because of the activities of, the police force, the military, these licensed security agencies are not having the field day. They're not having the opportunity to be able to, gain their craft or be gainfully employed by other companies. So if we take out the police, you give another room for more employment in Nigeria, because we are going to have expert security firms, springing up here and there. You're going to have people resorting to employing those security firms, and that to a large extent will also contribute to lifting Nigerians out of unemployment, lifting a few persons out of poverty. And it will all work in the interest of the, the renewed hope agenda of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. While on the other hand, we will now have at least a huge number of the Nigerian security forces being added back to the, the already pool of existing personnel, and then redistributed to cater for the needs of Nigerians.
I think one thing, that Olumiwa Adejobi tried to make very clear to Nigerians is the fact that the federal government and the Nigeria Police Force is not trying to strip persons who are legally and statutorily entitled to police escorts of this security detail. Of course, it's also important that, it's also important for us to know that if this is done, it's going to be counterproductive. Like, Francis insinuated that some expatriates in the country, the United Nations, and all kinds of international staff members that we have on the soil of Nigeria, there is some kind of security detail and structure that is hard for them. But I think what the federal government and the Nigeria Police Force is trying to do here is to make sure that the activities of the Nigeria Police Force is streamlined in accordance to the constitutional duties and roles for them. Now, something else that Olumiwa Adejobi tried to put out there for the citizens to really understand is the fact that those who genuinely require specialized police escorts, this is a vital service which will continue to be provided by other units of the Nigeria Police Force. Now, there is a special protection unit in the Nigeria Police Force which can be saddled with this responsibility upon proper application and proper screening of these applications by the Nigeria Police Force. So it's not like in entirety we are no longer going to see members of the Nigeria Police Force or certain expatriates or VIPs around the country with any kind of security. They're saying it is going to be streamlined. It will not just be any kind of person enjoying this security detail, and it will not just be any member of the Nigeria Police Force from any unit for that matter going out to carry these things. So members of the Special Protection Unit may be saddled with this responsibility, especially for those who deem it necessary. Is your life under threat? Are you going to a high insecure prone area and you need to go with security? The Nigeria Police Force is saying they are going to screen this need before allowing members of the Nigeria Police Force to go ahead. But at the end of the day, we must move to make sure that we are not establishing counterproductive policy reforms. But at the center of this is the fact that the Nigeria Police Force is attempting to ensure, key reforms in the operation of the Nigeria Police Force. I mean, move up to taking advantage of cutting-edge technology, of course, inclusive and community-based police force in Nigeria to achieve all of the security needs and everything that is constitutionally under their role to play as a security agency in the country. But we'll move on from that particular story this morning.
Oh, we see that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia yesterday canceled the visas of all 264 passengers lifted by Nigeria's private carrier Air Peace on arrival in Jeddah from Malam Aminu Kano International Airport in Kano State. The Saudi Arabia, however, insisted that the airline should return the passengers back to Nigeria. A report has it that after intervention of the Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the number of affected passengers were reduced from 264 to 177. Of course, it's a disturbing incident actually happening here. Looking at the result that or the report given by the Saudi Arabia, as that yesterday, there's been no issues according to the authorities so far, but rather issues were bordered on visa cancellations, and one would wonder. At this point in time, I think it was just recently President Ahmed Bola Tinubu traveled to, Saudi Arabia.
Over the weekend, for God's sake.
And then, of course, we're talking about strengthening bilateral relationships. So what would make the people of Saudi Arabia or the authorities to begin to take actions such as these that is not in the interest of, promoting that bilateral relationship is a grave concern. And so far, the details of these rejections are very sketchy, and it leaves a whole lot of room for speculations.
Well, it leaves a lot of room for speculations, and big questions are being asked. Why would the Saudi Arabian government wait for flights to take off from Nigeria and land, first of all, at their airports in their nation before cancelling the visas for 264 persons? First of all, if there is going to be an international flight moving from one country to the other, there is proper communication that is made. Why did this cut across as a surprise to the Saudi Arabian government, to the air firm that also lifted Nigerians off Nigeria to that particular country? But I think that, just looking into the story, part of the concerns that is raised is the fact that there was, a Saudi Arabian airline that was saddled with, the business responsibility of flying people from Nigeria out to Saudi Arabia. But in recent times, we've had a Nigerian carrier that rose to the occasion and started, traveling that route, offering, lesser prices for people to travel from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. Is this, some form of business when we say people are trying to monopolize the market space for just themselves? Would these be, part of the underlying issues here? But so far so good. We haven't heard the Saudi Arabian government give the exact reason as to why this must first of all be established that this is a colossal embarrassment to the Nigerian government, to the aviation in Nigeria. It's puts a really strong demand on, what do we call it now, bilateral relationships. You wouldn't have just had our president in the country signing some memorandums of understanding on different issues, and you have members of his country embarrassed, to that extent in, at their airports. Are there security concerns that emanated from the arrival of these Nigerians at that airport? Why would they be returned? I mean, calculate the flight time from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. Why would someone have to do that back to back at the same time? What are the issues and and other things that brought them to Saudi Arabia? What happens at this time?
Well, it's a serious cause for concern, but I beg to differ. Like Nigerians, we wouldn't say that's a big blow on the Nigerian government, but rather a cause for concern. Because you're looking at the business dynamics, the dynamics of the business environment. First, you're seeing a different, player stepping onto the scene, and then probably offering a lot of other, services, or offering services in a more affordable way for people traveling outside from Nigeria to, Saudi Arabia. Now, one dynamics in the business environment that we cannot roll that, and we have to keep discouraging, is monopoly. When people are completely in charge of, a product or services, and they know that the people have no alternative, they have no other way to turn to, the chances of, abuses happening, the chances of manipulation, the chances of exploitation is consistently going to be there. And those are the speculations coming out from the incident in Saudi Arabia. First, it was just one carrier, and then now there is another one. So this could be a business move by the other carrier trying to sway the hands of the government of Saudi Arabia to discourage Air Peace and any other interested player who might want to, you know, get involved in traveling or transporting people from Nigeria to that route, that is a very serious cause for concern. I mean, the very fact that we had members of the Saudi Arabian embassy in Nigeria clearing the travelers from Nigeria before they boarded the plane, and then, of course, upon landing in Saudi Arabia, the visas were cancelled. In quote, let's use the Nigerian parlance, the orders came from above, and nobody knows who gave the order from above. So it's a grave cause for concern. It's a call for the Nigerian aviation industry to look into the matter, for the federal government to look into the matter and make sure that this issue is holistically addressed. We cannot live in a country where we are not allowed to do business across board. But we have millions of other nationals in Nigeria transacting business on a daily basis. Nobody's stopping them. Nobody's trying to force them out of business. So if our own businessmen and women cannot also be allowed to do business across board without interference, without any threat or intimidation or any propaganda taken out against them, then the federal government needs to rise to the responsibility of protecting Nigerian businesses. And this is the call that Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the president, Festus Keyamo, the aviation minister, and other relevant government agencies need to rise and immediately look into and address the concerns.
Well, the federal government has already moved to investigate this particular unfortunate incident between Nigerians, the Nigerian government and the Saudi Arabian government. Of course, we see a statement released by the special advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Al-Kazim Abdul Khair, saying that the Foreign Ministry is going to investigate the matter to see if any consular or aviation rules had been flouted by the Nigerian government or the Nigerian carrier for that matter. Now, it says, of course, we have to look at the timing of this incident, the fact that Nigeria was just recently at the Saudi Africa Summit, where bilateral discussions and, you know, several others covering several sectors was covered between the two countries. Now, one thing that must be put out there is the fact that, of course, the passengers went through the Advanced Passenger Information System, APIS, during their check-in formalities in Nigeria. Of course, it was also monitored by the Saudi authorities. So like I said, it's not like the Saudi authorities did not know that they were expecting 264 Nigerians. But of course, we saw the fact that the foreign ministry waded into the matter, and the number of people to be repatriated was reduced to 177. So we see 177 people to be sent back to Nigeria. Of course, they had gone there for the Hajj that is happening in Saudi Arabia. But upon investigation, fingers crossed to see what the federal government and the aviation ministry and the foreign ministry in Nigeria comes up with, what exactly was the breach that caused the Saudi Arabian government to make this move at this time. But let's move to the very last flash story for this morning. A really sad incident. A lot of places where we see Nigerians being pushed to the wall as a result of the subsidy removal and the price hike in every other thing. We've seen changing times in the economy. Inflation has hit a soaring high. But this is a concern coming out of Enugu State, where we see that high fares, is forcing Enugu residents to trek long distances. Of course, they've decried the rise in transportation cost within the metropolis, which has resulted in unprecedented hardship among the people. Now, of course, we see the fact that there's a lot of struggling residents having to resort to trekking many kilometers daily just to, mitigate all of the issues that we're having. Let's not forget that there's going to be all kinds of attendant risk involved in taking on these kinds of unwarranted trekking by residents of Enugu State.
Well, one thing is certain: when the people get pushed to a point where they can no longer cope, they always would have to find crude measures, other alternatives to try and get by each day. And it's not limited to Enugu State. Enugu might be in the spotlight today because somebody's highlighting that, but it's happening across the board.
Definitely.
I mean, when you can no longer pay, maybe a distance you used to pay 50 naira, you're now paying 150 or 200 naira. A lot of people are going to take to trekking. I don't know when last you walked around the streets of Akwa Ibom State. The volume of people who are trekking after work is definitely more than the volume of people who used to trek about 4, 5, 6 months back down the line. So it's a consistent call. A lot of people would say, okay, the wage award given by the federal government should be able to ameliorate, but how much of that number of Nigerians across the states are being covered by the wage award, either by the state government or by the federal government? So it still goes back to the same call, the same conversation. The federal government, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, need to fix the question of subsidy. It needs to fix the question of having a refineries work. You need to fix the problem of increased price of petroleum product. And most importantly, the converted CNG vehicles that were promised. We need to get it up and operational across the states, because until we do that, Nigerians are going to keep suffering. And the longer we suffer, the more difficult it's going to be for Nigerians to be able to trust this present administration.
There's a lot to say about this in relation with the administration. I think I was listening. It was our guest yesterday, or someone I was listening to in the course of this week, that was saying it takes an administration that a lot of persons feel was illegitimately put into office. It takes their actions for them to be able to get the opposition on their side. It's not just about you asking that everybody deals with what the results of the petitions and the tribunals are, and let's get working. The elder statesman that I was listening to was saying, the administration in power will need to do more. They will need to serve the citizens. They will need to serve the nation for people to believe that they know what exactly that they're doing on that seat. It's not just a matter of, let's take whatever it says that we are handed down. But this is a serious problem. And like Francis rightly said, it is not only happening in Enugu State. Cut across the 36 states of the Federation, Nigerians have been promoted into an uncanny kind of difficulty. We were looking at about 6 months ago, we're looking at the fact that we had about 130 million people living beyond, below, what do we call it now? Poverty line. Yes, but you can't say it's about 130 million now, because there are people that were on borderline poverty. Imagine all that has happened in recent times. We have more people. I mean, someone was saying, let's be frank to ourselves. If we are estimating to have about 250 million people in Nigeria, about 200 people are living below the poverty line. What exactly is the federal government doing? It is only Lagos State, Francis, that has recently, pushed up more conversation about their CNG buses. They have made steps. Lagos is not catering for the needs of all Nigerians at this time. They are catering for the needs of their citizens in the state. So what's happening in the rest of the state? And when we talk palliatives with regards to subsidy removal impact, why wouldn't we have taken the billions of naira or dollars that was borrowed for palliatives and sunk into sectors that would really have helped the life of Nigerians? When we are talking about attendant consequences of these kinds of trekking, let's also know that the raining seasons are coming to an end. The sun is scorching in the sky, and you're going to have people suffering from hydration. How much more people, do we have health facilities that are ready to combat unforeseen health circumstances that may arise out of these kinds of issues on our roads? So there's so much responsibility, there's so much call as to what the federal government should be doing for Nigerians at this time. If we are going to have the CNG buses, it's taken upwards of 5 months now, getting to the 6th, since when the federal government told us, these CNG buses were going to be sent as, buffers for transportation needs across the 36 states. We haven't even seen it yet delivered maximally in one state, and that is a big problem. But that's where we're going to put to rest our flash stories this morning, and we head on straight to our major stories.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Well, of course, this is Rise and Shine, and we're heading into our major stories. Of course, one of such is the action of the federal government, which is threatening the Nigerian Labour Congress and the trade union organization with a contempt of court charge if the NLC and the TUC remain adamant and embark on the industrial action that was slated for today. I'd like to take a conversation, a comment made by the federal government's spokesperson as it yesterday, which has generated a lot of reactions. It came directly from the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga. And this particular press statement coming from Onanuga has generated a lot of reactions. And I'll quickly take some of it, to draw attention to some of the things that he has highlighted on the reason why Nigerians are reacting very seriously to the comment coming from Onanuga. He said, we notice with this made a decision by the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress to call out workers to commence the strike action from midnight despite a restraining order issued last week by Justice Benedict Backwash Kanye of the National Industrial Court. This decision by the NLC and TUC, other than being an ego-tripping move, is clearly unwarranted. It is an attempt to blackmail the government by the leadership of the NLC. We are still at a loss as to why the NLC and TUC decided to punish a whole country of over 200 million people over a personal matter involving the NLC president, Mr. Joe Ajero, whose error of judgment led to assault on him in Owerri while he was planning to incite the workers in Imo State into a needless strike. While the federal government does not condone any form of violence and assault on any citizens of Nigeria, regardless of his or her social and economic status, it is on record that the Inspector General of Police has ordered investigation into what happened. Now, of course, Ajero, while the Commissioner of Police in Imo State, under whose watch the incident happened, has been transferred out of the state. Now, the first set of questions Nigerians are asking is, up until now, it's been a week plus since the incident in Imo State happened. Before the week, the week of the elections in Imo State, the off-season election, we have not, as a country, heard the standpoint of the federal government on what transpired in Imo State. Even when the International Labour Organization slammed the federal government with a sanction or with a ban or a comment from the ILO, we did not see a reaction coming from the federal government. Now, the federal government had to wait until the strike action was happening today, less than 24 hours before the comment came. Now, that is one concern Nigerians have asked. And then the second one, Joe Ajero, as Onanuga said, should not be brutalized. No Nigerian, the federal government, the presidency does not tolerate any Nigerian being manhandled. But you did not speak when a Nigerian was being manhandled, whether or not he's the president of the NLC or is just an average Nigerian. Now, if the federal government was sincere, if the presidency was sincere, the best time to have spoken would have been when that incident happened. That is when the presidency would have let Nigeria know their standpoint in what has happened. But we saw President Ahmed Bola Tinubu given the flag just within the wake of that incident in Imo State to the governorship candidate, or Hope Uzodinma. And as far as the election in Imo State is concerned, the comment coming from Imo people is in multiple diversions. One, a lot of people have attributed to Uzodinma's victory to some kind of a pact that has been agreed upon. Others have said that pact was a flaw. And others have said whatever transpired, it is completely impossible for Uzodinma to have garnered all the local government areas.
27 local government areas.
That is completely impossible. So if INEC is telling Nigerians that Imo State, all the people in Imo State just suddenly, including the workers who have been owed 20-month salaries, would turn out en masse and vote for Hope Uzodinma, then that is a complete lie. And we've not also forgotten that within the moment of this season election, areas, the local government polling units that INEC said elections were not going to hold.
Yeah.
Election results were uploaded. And INEC has not distanced itself from that incident. So how did we get here? Where have we headed in Nigeria? Why will the federal government, why does the federal government always sit back to watch an injustice happen and not speak? And wait until when it is time and when it's going to affect the generality of Nigerians before they now try to guilty trip people who have been involved. Because this is trying to guilt trip Joe Ajero and the NLC and TUC.
Also trying to guilt trip Nigerians at this time, but it leaves a lot of questions on the minds of Nigerians. Just thinking about the proceedings of elections in Imo State. But I think we have seen the federal government make this move one too many times. Every time the NLC has moved to take on a nationwide strike, we've seen them, move to use a court sanction to try to, bolster the hands of the NLC. We've also seen all kinds of threats at this time. Now, remember that this particular strike had been forewarned by the NLC over a week ago, and then you would always see the federal government wait 24 hours into the wee hours of the strike to begin to issue all kinds of statements. And every time you think that Nigerians, led by the NLC, do not have a right to respond to the incidences that are happening in the country, I think some of our, lawmakers and some of our public office holders are really, really laughable. At this time, you're saying, first of all, of course, Joe Ajero has been accused of, politicizing labor and all of that. But why was Joe Ajero in Imo State in the first place? Was he there to campaign for any gubernatorial candidate? The answer is no. Workers in the state had a concern right in the middle of campaigns leading up to a few days of elections in the state. They were crying out that, their labor conditions in Imo State not favorable. And that's why they had the chairman right there, and all of these incidents played out. But we must also note the fact that the federal government has not said anything in that line, but they're suddenly coming out to now castigate Joe Ajero and the NLC for wanting to move on this particular strike action. Now, the big question, I think the most important part of this nationwide strike is, are labor unions, aligning with this move at the center? We know that it's not just an NLC move, it's also a TUC move and the joint NEC at this point. All of them have collaborated and agreed that this is the best move to be made at this time. But taking to the streets and offices and secretariats in your various states this morning, do you think that workers across the 36 states are actually complying with this particular mandate by the NLC TUC to have commenced the nationwide strike midnight today? Do we see our secretariat shut down? Do we see public offices being closed down from work? Now, there's a lot of arguments for this. How is this going to affect the country economically? At a time like this, everything is literally tight. Economy is tight. People are not making as much money. When you clamp down on the productivity of the nation by saying no, federal or state workers should go to work, on the reverse, what are we going to achieve with these kinds of moves? But how exactly can Nigerians get the federal government to move? Also, it's not just, this is not a nationwide strike that is just propagated just because of Joe Ajero's manhandling. They're also saying they had given the federal government a 30-day ultimatum to be able to effect certain changes, which also include the wage award and certain other things that the NLC had asked as wages for workers in the country. How many of these things have been fulfilled by the federal government, that some of these spokespersons from the presidency will come out and say that this is a move that is really wrong in its entirety?
Well, if you look at the comment that came from the NLC and TUC after the incident in Imo State, you will see that the federal government had enough time, and Lalong, the Minister of Trade of Works, had enough time to have called labor and have some talks. The federal government had enough time to have waded into the incident that happened in Imo State. You're telling us the CP has been redeployed. What other punitive measure has been given to him?
So the CP being redeployed was the indiscretion of IGP Egbetokun.
Okay, so now, when the redeployment came, let's say that is the first step. That can be accepted as the first step. What other punitive measure has the Nigerian police meted out to the leader? Because if you have not punished him in any way, it means you are directly telling the Nigerian people that any Nigerian person can be brutalized, can even be killed.
Who has questioned Hope Uzodinma?
Without anybody questioning, without anybody rising to their defense. So that is completely condoning any act of illegality or criminality on the part of our security forces. Already, Nigerians are still ahead when it comes to police brutality, which led to the NSAS protests in 2020, that it is still in the system. So incidences like this further emboldens people within the ranks and files of security forces to think themselves as demigod and capable of doing just anything. And the highest that will happen is redeployment. When you are redeploying somebody, what other punitive measures have you given out? Has he been suspended? Is there a probe panel set up to investigate him? What will be the outcome of that probe panel? How much of a punishment he's given to him to serve as deterrent to other security forces or people who are entrusted with responsibility at his level. Now, that has not been done. And you're saying that should be enough to cushion the effect of what happened in Imo State? Of course, no. Because by manhandling Joe Ajero as the Labour president in Nigeria, you are manhandling the generality of Nigerians. You are manhandling the generality of workers in Nigeria. So it shows that if the number one person can be manhandled and the federal government is not speaking, then the average Nigerian worker who is not in position of authority can be mistreated by anybody and anyone, and nothing will happen. But as of this morning, it is not just going to be an NLC thing, because ASU has also directed its members to join the nationwide strike. So you're talking about shutting down of institutions.
Yeah, we've seen lecturers and universities move to also,
join the strike.
Yeah,
so at this moment, when some schools are writing exams, it means students are going to have to cut down their exams. People who are supposed to graduate might not necessarily be able to graduate again in record time because of what? The inability of one person or the federal government to look into issues when they needed to have done. So most Nigerians will say this is a matter of displaced priority. If President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is consistent, deliberate and intentional with his comment of wanting to restructure the academic institutions in Nigeria, of wanting to ensure that every person in Nigeria, his right, his fundamental and constitutional right, his security is guaranteed, then we need to look past waiting for the dead end before incidences or before comments begins to fly out. Because when you see what the federal government is trying to do at this point in time, is trying to shift the blame from the from the federal government, from the leadership of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to the labor unions. If they actually intended to solve the matter, the time to have done that had long passed. You can't always wait until 24 hours or less than 24 hours or on the wee hour of that incident, of the strike action, before you begin to mobilize for a meeting. Of course, if the NLC and TUC doesn't show up now, the federal government is going to say, we did try to call a meeting to negotiate. What are you negotiating at the 11th hour when you had a ample opportunity to do that?
Speaking of negotiations, we are seeing the fact that of course the federal government is moving to meet labor leaders as nationwide strike begins today. Now, I think some of the brunt of this conversation is that these are the same old strategies. Every time the NLC-TUC is going to go on strike, that morning, you're suddenly going to see it look like the federal government just got wind of this strike and they're inviting NLC and TUC leaders for a conversation. And it's going to be closed doors meetings for maybe another 3, 4, 5 hours. And we hear that certain understandings were, reached. But yet we never see implementation of these conversations that were had by, members of these unions and the leadership of the country. Now, when you call in the leadership of NLC-TUC today for a conversation, Francis, what exactly is the presidency, the leadership of this country trying to tell the NLC? Are they saying that prior to this time they did not have wind of what happened in Imo State? Even the National Assembly, yesterday we had Senator Godswill Akpabio coming to say that the lawmakers in Nigeria are the most bombarded, that Nigerians drag them a lot, even with regards to issues that don't concern them. But at this point, the National Assembly, we believe, is also a bridge between government and governance and the people. Now, when, the National Assembly, who is largely known for carrying out all kinds of probes, when you heard that this had happened against the labor union, because I think another thing we are trying to do is try to extradite or remove Joe Ajero to be a standalone person. Joe Ajero represents labor unions in Nigeria. So you cannot say that. It would be different if they said, Joe Ajero was in his house during a pool party and this attack happened. No, it was in the course of duty. It was in the course of a labor action that this happened. So, that particular aide that spoke, you cannot say that this is not something that represents the labor union. It does represent the labor union. It does touch the labor union in Nigeria. So where has Senator Godswill Akpabio, where has the National Assembly coming to wade into the matter? Nobody was having this conversation prior to this morning. But at the end of the day, it is going to be Nigerians feeling the brunt of the nationwide strike. When we look at the financial implication, how much is Nigeria going to be losing today if at the end of the day this strike strike does actually move past the the last couple of hours that we've done from midnight till now, if it goes through to the end of today, and the strike is said to be indefinite, so we don't know, we have a start date, we do not have a finish date, how much of impact is this going to be? And Francis, we must also think about certain kinds of moves that the federal government may be having up their sleeves. Don't forget what they did with ASU. We are still having that conversation of over 8 months salaries being owed, one conversation about no work no pay strategy being put in place. These are things that we must also preempt and look out for when we're having these kinds of conversation.
Well, of course, that incident is still one in some of the things that the organized labor is taking up, and ASU is still, trying to get that issue resolved. But whether or not the federal government likes it, you cannot always believe that you use the instrumentality of the state, the court, the police, the security forces to muzzle Nigerians into not speaking. The more you do that, the more you press Nigerians harder to the wall. And the more you press Nigerians harder to the wall, the more you give the opportunity for Nigerians to be angry. And an angry people, cannot be contained. No matter how much forces we have in this country, unless you want to completely annihilate or wipe out the entirety of Nigerians by, using the instrumentality of the state. But if your interest is to save Nigeria, then it's about time for the federal government to understand that you cannot always walk around doing business as usual and think that once you walk or once you speak, everybody's going to crumble and come to you to answer and attend to your needs when you refuse to attend to the needs of Nigerians. And at this point, it's also very critical for the Nigerian people and for the NLC and TUC and other trade unions to understand, the consistent calling off and going off and threatening on a strike and then calling off at the 11th hour after meeting has made some Nigerians to lose faith in the NLC and TUC. Now, what's in the truth? Nigerians are saying most times or alleging that when the TUC and the NLC leadership meet with the federal government at the 11th hour and then come out and decide to call off the strike, money has exchanged hands from the federal government to the leadership of the organized labor. And that does not in any way work in the interest of the labor unions. And of course, at some point, if the labor union does not also stand its ground, it's going to be a problem for support and mobilization on the part of Nigerians. But let's give voice to the TUC leader, Osifo, and get to hear more, and then we'll come back.
So the two labor center has resolved to stand firmly by the decision of the joint NEC that was held last week, Tuesday, that effective 001 hours on the 14th of November, we shall declare a nationwide strike. So effective tomorrow or midnight today, a nationwide strike is going to commence. All affiliates of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, all affiliates of Nigeria Labour Congress, all state councils of the two centers have been mobilized adequately. And this is going to be indefinite until government at all levels
That is, the leadership of the TUC and the NLC all speaking with one voice in one accord. And the Nigerian people at this point in time are saying, NLC, we've had enough of you talking. We've had enough of you negotiating. We've had enough of you, announcing a planned nationwide strike and calling off at the 11th hour. If you're serious about fighting for the interests of workers, if you're serious about fighting for the interests of Nigerians, we want to see you go on strike. Nigerians will support you until the federal government understands that the rights of the people must be respected and they must be given their due. Then the Nigerian people will begin to take, more seriously labor. I mean, at this point, if we were to conduct a survey, most Nigerians wouldn't be shocked if, the scale is not so much on the high interest for the organized labor. We might have a 60-40, we might have a 70-30, who knows? But for the Nigerian labor unions to be able to garner full support from Nigerians, the Nigerian people are calling for that strike action to happen. They don't want to know. They don't want to care what is going to happen to Nigeria. If the presidency, the federal government, has refused to attend to issues when they ought to have attended to them, even when they had made a commitment, they signed an MOU. This present administration signed a 15-item MOU with the labor unions. And how, up until now, the question is, how many of those items have been taken care of? How many of them have been addressed holistically? Apart from the wage award that has been, brought into the supplementary budget that was recently signed. Outside of that, the other 14 items that have been listed, to what extent have the federal government been able to implement them? And then, of course, help Nigerians to, cushion the effect of fuel subsidy. So all of these concerns are what Nigerians are asking. And if that is not done, if the labor does not go on strike at this point in time, it's going to spell bad for both ways.
Well, that's basically it. I think one of the major things we are going to do today is keep track of what is happening nationwide with regards to the strike. How much of an implementation are we seeing by unions under the TUC, under the NLC? Are we having state governments moving? Are we having workers under this? Just like Francis had just said, is this something that Nigerians really want? Do we want to collectively go on this strike? And let's see what conversations we can actually have with the federal government. But of course, remember that you have advantage of a social media platforms, you have advantage of our phone lines. We'd like to get responses from you across the country as to how the nationwide strike by the NLC TUC is being affected in your state. Do you think that this is a worthy cause for us to be taken at this time? We'd love feedbacks from all over the country, from Plateau, from Niger State, from Lagos, from Ogun, Osun, everywhere you are, the FCT. Let's know, did you really stay back home today in solidarity with the movement by the NLC? And do you think that this is going to drive home a point with the federal government? But let's move to one more story before we let this to rest. Now, this one has a funny twist when you see that the federal government is making move to check excessive borrowing by state governments. And you're wondering when the father is doing the same thing that he wants to warn his children against doing. It doesn't really make sense. To a very large extent, life works exemplarily, and the federal government will first of all nib its own appetite for taking loans and borrowing first of all before the state governments can see that this is not a way to go. But let's piggyback a little bit. A couple of months ago, we saw the fact that state governments had borrowed from about 6 Nigerian banks to the tune of several billions of naira. The figures are not coming to mind now if it doesn't run to trillions, but we remember having that particular conversation where state governments had borrowed from certain Nigerian banks to a very huge sum in the first 6 months of this year alone. But of course, now that the federal government is asking that they no longer want the state governments to borrow as much, saying there is a worry that is rising by the indiscriminate borrowing by state governments from banks and capital markets. Now, the federal government has commenced a process to check such borrowing. Consequently, the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, FRC, has issued guidelines on conditions a state government must meet before borrowing from any bank in the country. Of course, we saw Barrister Charles Abana, the head of Directorate of Legal Investigation and Enforcement at the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, disclosing this at the Growth Initiative for Fiscal Transparency, held yesterday. Now, the commission is saying that they are shocked to find out that most banks in the country lure state governments into securing loans.
Can banks actually lure state government to securing loans?
I mean, I think it's bidding. It's bidding and what do they call this other thing? It's bidding and the word is eluding me. But I mean, you just come, you sell your market, state governments buy it, you borrow.
It's not
and
rocket
pitching,
science.
that's what I wanted to say, yeah.
It's not rocket science. I mean, if the state government needs funds for projects and they don't have enough allocation, they are not able to generate internally to also meet these needs, they have the right to borrow. The federal government is literally borrowing on a daily basis.
It's literally borrowing like I think a problem with this borrowing is, Francis, I was looking at certain statistics yesterday and repatriated funds. We're looking at repatriated funds from NNPCL, Francis. We're looking at repatriated funds from telecoms. We're looking at repatriated funds from telcos. Even if you're saying it is not to the number or the amount that you would have wished for, some of these sectors are churning in trillions of naira. If we collectively put in together our internally generated revenue in the country, won't it bolster our budgetary allocation to a very large extent, as opposed to how much we usually would borrow for budget? I think the baseline for this is that the federal government really does not have the clean hands to come to this equity conversation with state government.
Well, the federal government definitely does not have, and this conversation can be taken in two ways, or multiple ways. One is the federal government getting upset or getting jealous that some state governments are doing better than the federal government is doing, and they are borrowing for better projects. Or is the federal government upset that the borrowing at the state government level might be outweighing their interests as well? I mean, if you're borrowing, I'm borrowing, and then the people can turn back and look at what you've been able to do with what you're borrowing, and then look back on the other side and see nothing to show for what has been borrowed for, or the money that have been borrowed. It definitely will create room. So this could be a move, a political move by the presidency or by the federal government to show, we can no longer have Nigerians have the opportunity to begin to weigh and beginning to, measure between what the state governments are doing with what they are borrowing and what the federal government is doing with what they are borrowing. Either ways, as far as Nigeria is concerned, as far as the democracy is concerned, state governments, state governors, within the provisions of the law, have rights. And I'm sure that this is going to be another serious issue between the governors forum, Nigeria's governors forum, and the federal government. I will not be surprised when we wake up, Nigerians wake up tomorrow, and there is a serious conversation coming up to this. But this is, I think this is where we're going to drop a pause and, of course, head out to the news brief Dex, where Mary Joseph is standing by. When we do come back, a lot more is waiting for you on Rise and Shine, so please stay with us.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world, watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website SpectrumTVLive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon. One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people relationships, organizations thrive, and how long they stick together. Join Uyai and Yekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories, and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigerian for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin this morning with Nigeria's leader, President Bola Tinubu, who has congratulated Dr. Doye Diri of Bayelsa State, his Imo State counterpart Hope Uzodinma, and Kogi State Governor-elect Usman Ododo on their victories in the just-finished governorship elections. Diri of the main opposition People's Democratic Party (PDP) and Uzodinma won their re-election bids, while Ododo of the All Progressives Congress (APC) clinched the Kogi State governorship poll. Hours after the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) declared them as winners of the off-cycle elections, President Tinubu congratulated them for the victories, saying they reflected the people's wishes. Away from that, the federal government has called on the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) to shelve their planned nationwide strikes. Both unions had yesterday called on workers across the country to cut down tools at midnight as their standoff with the Imo State governorship elections takes a national undertone. But in a statement, Kamarudin Ogundele, the Special Assistant Communications and Publicity of the AGF and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi, reminded the unions about a court order barring them from going on strike. The government therefore called on the unions to respect the court order and adhere to the principle of the rule of law. They also urge workers to report for duties and not to entertain any fear, as their safety is guaranteed and will be protected within the ambit of the law. In education, the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has announced that it had ditched the paper and pencil test model and adopted the computer-based test CBT mode for the conduct of the senior school certificate examination. This was released in a statement signed by the acting head of the Public Affairs Unit of WAEC, Moyoshola Adeshina. According to the statement, the innovation would kick off with the conduct of the West African Senior School Certificate Examination for private candidates in February 2024. We head straight now to the foreign scene, where English singer and songwriter Ed Sheeran has donated 45 garments and accessories, including his underwear, to charity. The items have been given to East Anglian Children's Hospices, each shop in Framingham, Suffolk, where the singer grew up, to raise vital funds support, saying many of the items will be sold via auction on the charity eBay site. And finally, in sports, Carlos Alcaraz suffered defeat on his ATP Finals debut as Alexander Zverev fought back to win in Turin, Italy. Wimbledon champion Alcaraz lost 6-7, 3-7, 6-3, 6-4 to Germany's Zverev, who won the event in 2018 and 2021. It is the first time the 20-year-old spinner had lost 3 matches in a row since March 2021, which he was ranked outside the world's top 100. We'll have details of this and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses in counting.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine. We're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. This is the Tuesday edition where we take our time to look at issues rising out of our nation, other international issues and how they impact on the proceedings of events in Nigeria. So far, so good. We've had several conversations. And one way for you to catch up on all that is if you follow us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at SpectrumTv Live. We're currently streaming live on YouTube. And if you're just joining us and need to catch up on all the conversations we've had so far, YouTube is your best bet. And some of the things we've talked about this morning is the fact that the president has directed the Nigeria police force to withdraw police detail from VIPs in the country. We also see that there was a shocking event that happened in Saudi Arabia where 264 Nigerians were denied visas upon arrival. Of course, the Nigerian government has moved to probe and investigate into the cause of such embarrassing activity. We also see the fact that high fares forcing Enugu residents and literally every citizen in the country to trek long distances because transportation fares have really gone up high. Some other issue that goes without saying today is the first day in the nationwide strike moved by the NLC TUC. Several conversations. There is already a threat by the federal government to put a contempt charge against the NLC. Remember, the last week there was a court order asking the NLC to stand down their intended strike. But as of 000 hours this morning, the strike had begun. We also see the fact that ASU, lecturers and university unions have joined in that particular strike also. We also see here that the federal government is moving to check excessive borrowing by state governments. These are some of the conversations we've had so far on Rise and Shine. At this point, we're going to go straight to our daily spotlight where we look at the front pages of our national dailies, and we will be joined by Otue Kong Franklin to just have some conversations on this front page. Stay with us.
Of course, on today's spotlight, we're starting off with the front page of Vanguard newspaper this morning. The kicker on Vanguard says shock as Saudi Arabia cancelled visa on arrival for 264 Nigerians. The story is on page 5. We have the writer there says passengers airborne back to Nigeria. We're investigating to see if any consular or aviation rule has been flouted. Foreign Ministry, we are waiting for update. Presidency cancellation shocking stakeholder. It's Aero Politics, aviation security consultant. Of course, that gives credence to what we stated here this morning, that this is a possibility of politics, manipulation and monopoly happening there. The story is on page 5 on the front page of Vanguard. NLC TUC begin nationwide strike today over brutalization of Ajero orders. I think one thing that we need to clarify on the front page of the newspaper, this is not just about Joe Ajero. It seems literally like most people, even the federal government, is making this about, the Labour president, when it is indeed for the interest of, workers in Nigeria and Nigerians. Still on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, we see Tinubu to NJC appoint qualified lawyers to Supreme Court appeal court bench. The story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Bayelsa Imo Kogi governorship polls, triumphant Dirio Dodo Uzadima unveiled agenda. The story is on page 14. Tinubu orders withdrawal of policemen from VIPs. The story is on page 8. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Let's move away from the Vanguard. Our very next paper will be the Daily Trust. Big story there on Daily Trust says Naira's scarcity worsens as banks limit withdrawals, ATMs run dry, merchants groan as farmers insist on cash for grains, cattle traders affected in North, POS operators lament, middlemen get reward for attracting cash. This is a problem, Francis. Last week alone, the CBN came out to say that there was nothing like this going on. But I mean, this is a strange report that we are looking at. What exactly is happening? And we don't, I mean, this is not something that we should be experiencing afresh in this country in the same year. Well, we also see on the front page of Daily Trust, over 30 fishermen killed in fresh Taraba boat mishap. Conversion of petrol vehicles to CNG to cost federal government 6 million naira. That's cheap compared to the monies that they waste on other things. We also see here NLC TUC begin nationwide strike today over attack on Ajero. Now we also see here bandits burn farms in Niger, impose levies, drop contact number. Queues resurface in Abuja as petrol sells for 640 naira per litre. Tinubu's government inherited empty treasury, says NSA. That's a new twist. And we also see here that 177 deported as Saudi Arabia cancels visas of Air Peace passengers. Federal government orders probe Hajj Omar tour operators kick. Okay, that's all we have on the front page of Daily Trust.
Well, our next stop this morning would be the front page of the Nation newspaper. On the front page of the Nation, the kicker that says, strike not in nation's interest. President cautions labor. NLC TUC declares industrial action over assault on Ajero. AGF respect court order. Of course, that story is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Still on the front page of the Nation, we see Diri defeats Silva to secure re-election. The story is on page 4. Expert counsel WAEC over computer-based WAEC. Of course, that story is on page 6. Saudi stops 177 Nigerians from entering country. Government launches probe. The story is on page 5. Federal government streamlined borrowings by state. UBA secures $150 million trade facility from Afrexim Bank. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nation this morning.
All right, moving from there, we're going to look at our very next paper this morning's Daily Times. Daily Times says Labour kicks off nationwide indefinite strike today. We also see here that despite court order, we also see here shocker Saudi Arabia, the same story that we have told already this morning. Police gone down 2 suspected killers of Rivers DPO and others. Page 5 is where you find details of that story. INEC declares Diri winner of Bayelsa Guba poll. Pandev cancels Sylvia. Okay, page 2. Warri Market women protest skyrocketing food prices. Page 5 is where you can find details of that. There's a picture story also there. Diaspora voting to undergo second reading this week, says Senate leader. Last story here says Tinubu's 35 billion naira to judiciary. Other matters set workers against CJN. Page 5 is where you find details. That's all on the front page of Daily Times.
Well, that takes us to the next paper this morning. Of course, we'll be heading out straight to the front page of Punch newspaper. On the front page of Punch this morning, we see the kicker that says strike. Federal government threatens labor with contempt charge. NLC adamant. Stories on page 2. The writer there says nationwide strike indefinite. NLC boast. Federal government fumes say labor disobeys court order. NLC TUC writes ASU. Electricity unions demand compliance. Justice for Ajero. Stories on page 2. Still on the front page of Punch this morning, we see why I rejected 114% pay rise for judges. Precedent. Page 7 has a story. Saudi Arabia revokes Air Peace passengers' visas in Jeddah. The story is on page 19. Federal government withdraws over 100,000 policemen from VIPs. 100,000.
Who are they securing?
Whew. All right. The story is on page 7 on the front page of Punch this morning. Governorship polls, Tinubu Lords, INEC, PDP falls, Kogi Imo result. The story is on page 5 on the front page of Punch newspaper this morning. And just before we let go of the front page of Punch, 20 die as Saraba boat on fishing expedition capsizes. The story is on page 8. Those are the major story you'll find on the front page of Punch this morning.
Our very last story, this last paper is the Nigerian Tribune. ports, railway, others to shut down as NLC TUC begins strike. Labour unions must respect subsisting court order, says federal government. Page 3 is where you can find details of that story. WAEC begins CBT exams with private candidates. That's computer-based text. Page 4, outstanding NIMC debts threaten national identity card project. Page 4, how 190 billion naira debt by market, by market operators, others hampered NDPHC's operations. Company focuses on Light of Nigeria's project. Page 2 is where we can find details. Rishi Sunak appoints former UK Prime Minister David Cameron Foreign Secretary. Page 5. Demand pressure reverses gains recorded in foreign exchange market. Page 7. More flag for FG, over 40% IGR deductions as Coheso demands exclusion of colleges. Page 3 is where you can find details of that particular story. We also see here Afrexim Bank avails UBA $150 million trade finance facility to cushion effect of Ukraine war on customers. Page 6 is where you can find details of that story. We also have here Saudi government. Of course, we've taken that story this morning, and that's all that we have on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, a lot of issues, a lot of stories up for us to look into this morning. The most shocking of the headlines this morning we have for me is 100,000 police personnel being withdrawn from VIPs in the country. And then the first question that struck me as a Nigerian is, how did we get to this point? Like, who are these people protecting? I mean, 100,000.
I think one thing we must agree that although this is going to be painted in the best possible way, we must also know that this is a side hustle for the NPF. I mean, they do not go to secure or parade with these persons without getting a fee. Now, whether the fee goes, just to the police personnel that is working with this, VIP, or if there is some part of, that fund repatriated to the Nigerian Police Force, that is a big question that only the likes of Olumiwa Adejobi can answer. But then again, it's a side hustle. It's been going on for the longest time. So whilst we are trying to reform how the NPF works, we can't be so surprised with some of the, the things that will come up as a result of this.
Well, of course, we've been joined by the Crown State Director in Akwa Ibom State, Otuekong Franklin. So good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning, Francis. Good morning, Uyai.
Good morning.
To be with you this morning.
All right, welcome. Sorry about the network glitches that couldn't allow us to talk earlier on, but we're going to try as much as possible to wrap this up. First and foremost, let's look at your reaction as a strong vocal advocate of the people. The NLC TUC strike starting today. A lot of people joining, a lot of union ASU has joined, other unions have joined after getting requests by the organized labor. And it's happening today. But we see the federal government in its usual standpoint calling the leadership of the union for a meeting today, while also dangling contempt of court threats still on the leadership of the two unions. What's your reaction to this?
First of all, I think the protest by NLC is very timely and is long overdue. If you look at the history behind the protest, you will agree with me that on the 1st of November, the NLC president, Comrade Joe Ajero, led the NLC national leadership to a meeting at the NLC State Secretariat in Owerri to address long-standing issues that have affected the welfare of workers in Imo State. One of these issues include the fact that the workers in Imo State have been denied over 20 months' salary. Pensioners have been denied over 1 year salary. The governor is operating like a tyranny. He's operating like a tyrant. He's operating like an undemocratic dictator who just sits in his office and dictate what should be. Sometimes I am surprised when I see him with white clothes at public events, and I'm like wondering if they actually know the significance of putting on white. This is a man who became the governor of the state, and immediately he became the governor of the state, he declared over 10,000 workers as ghost workers in the state. And then, without any verification, you stop their salaries. For over 20 months, these people have been owed their salaries, and you are still going about. You attend church events, you go to worship, you attend this, you put on white, you go to events, and I don't know how the kind of heart people have when you are opportune to serve, when you are given the privilege to govern your people. Instead of offering good governance, you are inflicting pain on people. Some of these pensioners are people who have put in their all in the service for their state. Some of them are depending on medication. Some of them are diabetic patients. Some are having hypertension, and they depend on drugs, and yet you refuse to pay them because, in your own opinion, they are ghost pensioners. Have you done verification? There are other issues that are still pending in the state. And so when the NLC president, who is incidentally is from Imo State, is talking about the welfare of the workers of Imo State, I do not see any reason for him to be brutalized, to be malhandled by the agent of the state in conniver with the state governor, who, over time had not given any reason to address the issues that have been raised by the workers in the state. The NLC president did no wrong. He was at the NLC state secretariat in Owerri to address the press as well as the workers in the state. The NLC president is the #1 chief laborer of Nigeria, and he had the concern of his members. He can go to anywhere. He can address his members at anywhere. But from the report we gathered, the police that ought to protect him were withdrawn. The police who were assigned to cover the strike that would have been embarked upon, led by the NLC president, were withdrawn. Over 20 of them were withdrawn from the NLC president, and then thugs invaded the NLC secretariat. And then, according to the report, the police arrested the NLC president, took him and handed him over to the thugs to be beaten. He was blindfolded, taken to an unknown destination, beaten, tied as if he was a criminal. That's even aside. What was the offense committed by the NLC president? If he had committed any offense, is that the way to treat him? This is a man who has a voice, and he's been treated this way. So those who don't have voices cannot even talk. That is why we are in sympathy with the protest and the strike called by NLC. I'm living here and I'm going to address the protest at the state secretariat. I've been monitoring the situation. We've gathered, our reporters have told us that the Port Harcourt refinery have been shut down. No movement, no activity going on. ASU has joined the strike. Nopeng, Pengasin, all the unions. I even expect the bankers to join. I expect the aviation workers to join. I expect those who are in the power sector. Let the country for once be shut down very peacefully. Let the president of Nigeria, whose duty it is to address issues of workers, whose issue it is to address the welfare of Nigerians, begin to sit back and look at the fact that his government has suffered several strike actions of NLC. It's just barely a year in office. We are having a lot of strike action by NLC. How are the handlers being able to, how are they handling these issues? Why is it that under the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we are having a lot of strike actions being embarked upon by NLC within a stretch of 1 year? Something is wrong with that. It doesn't mean that the president does not mean well for the country. It means that the workers, those who are handling the affairs of workers in the country, are not doing their best. So this, for me, is a wake-up call to Mr. President to personally take charge and discuss with these workers. The workers of this country are looking up to him, not to the governor of Imo State, not to the Minister of Labor and Productivity. not to the Attorney General. No court action can deny Nigeria its right of liberty, its right to, its right to expression. The government that is always going to court, do they also obey court order? Several courts have ordered that the CBN governor be released. Just recently, that they obeyed it. The EFCC, the suspended EFCC chairman is still in the police custody. Nnamdi Kanu is still there. Where is Ezazaki? Where is Ibrahim Dazuki? The government that is always going to court to obtain court order, do they obey court order?
So this leaves a lot of questions.
That's the point.
This leaves a lot of questions on the minds of Nigerians, frankly. Like something you rightly said, for once, let Nigerians move and take these actions and let's see what exactly the federal government is going to be doing. We were also going to ask you, the ratio of compliance with this nationwide strike that started out, wee hours of this morning. How is Uyo looking? The state secretariat, the federal secretariat, these public agencies, are they functional in the state? And when we say let us shut down, we know that productivity is going to be clamped down to a very, very large extent. It means Nigeria is not going to be making a lot of money today and making progress with certain administrative roles if this strike goes on. And the strike is an indefinite one. It has started today. We don't know when it is going to end. So what do you think, the basic objective of this move? And I think to some quarters it's also worrisome that the baseline for this, strike is the fact that Joe Ajero was manhandled in Imo State. Everyone criticizes and, speaks against that particular action. But why is that like the brunt of, the nationwide strike at this time?
Well, first, your question is in two.
Absolutely.
And I will take the first one. I have just said here that every Nigerian deserves a right of movement, a right of freedom of speech, freedom to associate with anybody you want to associate with, freedom of thought, freedom of worship. The president of NLC has the freedom to go to his own state and to any state for that matter, has the freedom to associate with workers and anyone he so wishes. So it was wrong for him to have been manhandled, arrested by the police under the guise of protective custody and handed over to thugs who came to invade the premises of the NLC secretariat where the press conference was supposed to hold. So it is completely wrong for the governor of the state to allow that to happen under his watch. It is wrong for the president of Nigeria to allow that to happen under his nose. I have just said that the president has just spent barely a year and you're having a series of, ill treatment meted up to workers. We've had several actions being called by the NLC, by the TUC, and every other workers in the country under Mr. President. Mr. President is supposed to be more concerned with the welfare, because the cardinal function of every government is to provide welfare and security for its citizens. Was the president of NLC secured in Imo State? The answer is no. Was he protected? The answer is no. Look at how he looked today. Look at the pictures that they're even using.
Okay,
and
so
he sent a very wrong signal. Now, having said this, the level of compliance, I am in touch with the NLC leadership and the TUC leadership in our private state, and it is completely total. This morning, I have gathered a report that the state secretariat is shut down. No worker is allowed to go in and come out. I have also spoke with the TUC chairman, who has gone to Eket to address workers in Eket. And for me, I'm leaving this place, my interview. I'm going to be on the street. It is a total lockdown. Let us, for once, send a strong signal that the action and inaction of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and men of his government has not taken us any better. We are going. The hardship is biting harder by the day. Things are becoming too tough. Nigerians are feeding from refuse dump. We are becoming scavenging from refuse dump under the harsh economic policy that the government has brought out. So far,
okay, so
improvement.
Let's address two things.
Yesterday, I bought fuel 650 naira per liter.
Some places are even selling at 690. So let's touch on two things before we let you go in about a minute or two. Two things you've also touched on. Is it not surprising to you that of all of the allegations against Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, He flagged his win with winning 27 of 27 local governments in the state and won all of the polling units. Is it not surprising that someone who's not been satisfactory to the baseline workers of the state won the elections in his state landslide? That's number one. Number two, the issue, for instance, you reneged on the fact that police escorts and security were taken away from Joe Ajero when he was in Imo State. We have seen the federal government on the auspices and instruction of the president to withdraw security detail and police officers from VIPs in the country. So let's look at these two things quickly. The fact that Hope Uzodinma won landslide 27 over 27 in Imo State. How is that even possible when, I mean, it's alleged that he's not doing such a good work as the governor? Number two, withdrawal of police escort from VIPs. What are your thoughts? I mean, we've already seen one person suffer casualties. Is this the best move at this time?
The INEC rec in Imo State was nominated by the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma. That's to start with. I didn't expect anything less. That is why the Labour had to shift the protest away from the date of the poll, so that Nigerians will not say we are trying to witch hunt, that we are fighting his election. No. The issue, will outlive his tenure. The issue is the issue that had stayed to at the first tenure. The intention of the protest, the intention of the strike action by NLC was not targeted at making him to fail his campaign. After all, election in Nigeria, we have said that that INEC has compromised its standard. INEC has lost integrity. INEC has nothing left. If you look at the report coming out, the report we have gathered, the report that my sister agency have sent to me, showed that there were a lot of malpractices that took place in Imo State. So that is not even the issue. To discuss his victory, he could have won 100 over 100. It doesn't change the fact that the stand, his policies is harsh against the workers. How he managed to win election is not the issue, because the security agencies are with him, the INEC is with him, and then what else? Who else? Have you seen any poster? Go and check Imo State. Go around Imo State and check. Did you see any poster of any party apart from his own poster? Did you see any campaign billboard erected in the entire Imo State apart from only his own party, only his own billboard? So that is to even start with. Did he allow a level playing field for other parties to survive? Did he not muzzle at the other parties from the state? We got all this report. So for me, his victory wasn't a surprise. If you call it victory, because after all, INEC has lost its integrity. INEC has lost it all. That's just the point. So even the police had to campaign for him by going to host the police summit in Imo State, in Owerri, trying to justify that there is no security threat in Imo State. These are campaign gimmicks that we knew.
Yes.
So that is not even the issue. Withdrawal of police attaché to personalities is, for me, is of no consequence. The issue we are concerned now is how can the Nigerian government better the welfare of the Nigerian police force. Whether you withdraw police attaché to dignitaries or police escort, it doesn't change the fact that the policemen are underpaid. Their welfare is nothing to come about, and they are still extorted on the way. There is still high level of corruption within the police force. Those who have been sent to go and battle with the bandits in the northeast are suffering. How is their housing estate? How is the police welfare scheme? How is their pension and gratuity catered for? I have a policeman who just got retired as a police CSP, and his pension was about 2.5 million. I will put in 23 years of service in the police force. And
well, really big questions to take on, Franklin.
How far would that take him to? So the welfare of the police is
most important this morning.
We need the police to be well funded, and let the corruption in the police force be tackled and be treated, and then let the issue of police brutality be called to a halt.
Thank you so much, Otwekong Franklin, chairman of CRAN in Akwa Ibom State. Of course, his hands down this morning in the city of Uyo, overseeing the activities of the NLC strike, and he has given us his word as to why exactly this move has been made so far. Thank you, Otwekong Franklin, for coming on the show this morning. We absolutely appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot to really desire with regards to how elections are done in Nigeria, but we're going to take a quick pause, and when we return, there's a quick conversation we still want to have on Rise and Shine, so do stay with us.
Rise and shine.
Thanks for still being here. It's still Rise and Shine, the Tuesday edition. And of course, we're talking Nigeria, lots and lots of issues. Please do take advantage of the social media platforms, our phone lines and everything. Let's continue to have your contributions. But of course, it's a few days into the festivals and the holidays in Nigeria. And it's best to prepare for certain things ahead of time before the rush begins. And this morning, I'm being joined here in our studios by the National President for NATOP and Senior Special Advisor to the Governor of Akwa Ibom State on tourism, Mrs. Ime Udo. Good morning, ma'am, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, good to see you here today.
Good to see you. It's so good to have you. I know it was a long journey getting to the studio.
Oh, yes, it was. It's all part of exploring the state.
Exactly, and at least you get to see our tourism hills here.
Oh, yeah, beautiful sceneries, but for us, it's we're looking at the opportunities herein, opportunities we know that we can, develop. The entire environment is lovely, but I know that I'm happy you came all the way here. It gave me an opportunity to at least experience this destination.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit of Akwa Ibom State festivities. What do we have lined up in terms of tourism, entertainment, and the holidays? We know that there is usually this Christmas Carol festivals held in December, but it looks like we currently have a lineup of longer activities that has been streamlined by the state government.
Yes, I'm happy you just said that. Thank God for the previous organizers, people who managed the Christmas village, like it was called at the time. This time around, we've taken it a notch higher. This time around, we've like kind of raised the standard a bit. It's no longer called the Christmas village; it's now called the Christmas Park. We also have within the Christmas Park, for the first time, we're going to be having the Christmas carols. There, within the park as well. So it's going to be a park that has all activities, in it this time around. So it's for us, it's an opportunity for everybody, whether you're an Akwa Ibomite, non-Akwa Ibomite, if you can come, it's an opportunity for you to come and experience Akwa Ibom at Christmas. So while you're here with your families, your friends, having fun, experiencing all that Akwa Ibom has to offer, you also can sit and watch this beautiful carol that is in the Guinness Book of Record. People talk about. And then, even with that, every day you have lineup of activities. This time around, one thing I can tell you is that the focus is on the Akwa Ibom indigene. We know that we are talented. We know we are gifted. We know we have so much to offer, especially our youths. And so the focus, right from the carol, you find out that the lineup of artists are majorly homegrown artists. The local churches, the choral groups, all other performers are all Akwa Ibomites. The same with the performers at the Christmas Park this time around. It's an opportunity for, the government of the day to, invest in its people. Invest in the skills and the talents, of the people, so that it's a platform and an opportunity for you to develop yourself. So that's what's going to be having this. We're going to be having this time around.
Okay, it's beautiful to see that attention is being given to the Akwa Ibom man and Akwa Ibom woman.
Yeah.
Taking some of our strongest artists across board, whether it's secular or gospel, to do some of these events. Let's talk of how this is going to affect us economically. We cannot take away the economics of the country with regards to all of this. And then when you say we are using homegrown artists all around, how is it going to economically affect them? I think that is paramount. And also bringing in people from all over the country to enjoy these festivities. What are the projections for the IGR of the state?
Yeah, first, for the economy of the people, this is massive. And, you know, this is why I want the Akwa Ibom to key into this vision. It's laudable, it's an opportunity. I'll tell you a story. I was on Twitter the other day, and I saw a young man post his artwork. He's an artist, you know, people in the creative arts. I'm sure you will agree with me that within the creative industry, we have a lot of youths who are skillful, who are talented. And I said to him, please reach me. And, you know, the guy kept reaching me. I said, okay, I'm here. And he kept following me. And at the end of the day, I sat down with him. I said, what you're doing is fantastic. But for him is, come on, so government, come and sponsor me. Government, come and support me. And I'm saying, look, what you're doing is already a handwork that can bring you money, but you've got to strategize. You've got to look at the business sense within what you're doing and see how you can make that to become food on the table and money in your pocket. And I sat down with him and I said, do you have a stand there? He said no. And immediately I was with the Commissioner of Tourism together, and he said, you know what, I will give you an opportunity. Bring this here, and then I will tell you how you're going to make money out of this. And that's what I'm trying to say. The economic, you know, value to the Akwa Ibomites is huge. The potentials are massive. And so what I would advise all Akwa Ibomites, especially those of us, the youths and everyone within the creative sector, and those that have any form of skill, any form of talent, any form of gifting you think you can bring to bear, and that you know that it's something people can pay money for, please key into this and then be part of this. It's an opportunity. Now, looking at how we can drive in the traffic so that we can increase the IGR of the state. You know, I'm the president of the Nigeria Association of Tour Operators, you know, by the grace of God. And then if you're following the trend in Akwa Ibom within the last 2 months, you will see that Akwa Ibom is organically becoming a MICE destination. And if Akwa Ibom is organically becoming a MICE destination, because we're looking at the numbers, I can tell you that in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we've had well over 3,000 or more visitors coming to the States. Come into the States, and I can tell you how many of them have paid to be taken on tour to visit and to know the state. So currently, Akwa Ibomers, you need to understand that you are out there in the world. People want to explore your destination. What do you have to offer? It's not the work of government. It's not the work of one man. It's a collective effort. And so everyone must come on board. All hands must be on deck. Because at the end of the day, if I have 100 people visit Akwa Ibom, I can tell you they're not going to come here empty. The minimum anybody will come here with is 100,000 naira. And if you multiply 100,000 naira for one visit in one day, then you have multiples of such. It goes into an economy. It increases definitely the IGR. And the first beneficiaries of tourism are usually those within the grassroots. It's not people up there, not people in the high end, because when they come, they want to visit the villages. They want to visit those heritage sites that are located within the communities. They want to buy artworks. They want to eat our food. You know, they want to do those. They want to try. They're going to move around, so they're going to use the transportation. So these people are the first because you are the first beneficiary. So the governor, the government of the day, creating this platform is to give the Akwa Ibomers an opportunity to grow their financial base. Yeah,
really, really commendable. I think another conversation we should look at this morning is how can the average Akwa Ibom son and daughter take advantage of these opportunities. I saw one something you had put up yesterday, Christmas auditions. Now when you say that's just one out of all of the opportunities,
absolutely,
how can they take advantage of these opportunities? Where can they look out for them?
Yes. Now you see, that's the auditioning going on. And it's open. It's on as I speak to you. It starts every day. Started yesterday at 10 a.m. We auditioned quite a lot of people, and I was there. I was so happy to see not just young men, but even young children. Children within the ages of 10 and 13. Some of them even had better skills and talent than even the adults. I couldn't believe it. That, these people were so gifted, And so you can come here. It's an opportunity and it's a platform for you to showcase what you have. Look, everybody starts from somewhere. Today, we're seeing the stars all over the place. They all started from somewhere. I remember the day Wizkid came into my office, some years ago in Lagos, and that was the first time he was going to showcase himself in London. And from there, he blew. So I'm saying that everybody has a day and has a moment. So I'm saying Akwa Ibomites, explore this opportunity. Come out wherever you are. Today, the audition starts at 10 a.m. at the Council for Arts and Culture. Find your way there. Find your way there and, use that opportunity, showcase what you have. Don't undermine and don't look down on whatever gifting you have. It's an opportunity to start from somewhere.
It's an opportunity to start from somewhere. I think another big question this morning will be, how are you leveraging with the media in Akwa Ibom State to export these festivities? For instance, Spectrum Television is one of the biggest private TV stations in the South. How are we going to leverage on these kinds of platforms to export what we're about to do to the rest of the world?
You see, that's the truth. That's why I said we need everyone on board. Yesterday evening we had a meeting with the media. So we had the private, media, the journalists, and we had a meeting with them because we needed to bring them on board. The same, we need you all, because we can't do it. How do we showcase what we're doing to the world? We need SpectrumTv. We need NTA. We need, all the TV stations and all the media outfits. So we're saying, don't ask how. Please come and join. There is ample opportunity for everyone to do something. You see, it's a lot of work. Tourism in Akwa Ibom State, we're just starting. But I can tell you, we haven't even scratched the surface. It is a lot of work. We can't get it right at the first time. But the truth is that we are doing something about it. And because we are doing something about it, we want everyone within the value chain, as long as you are in the tourism space or in the in its allied services, please key into this. There is something for everyone to do, because it is actually a lot of work to do. And because right now, as a state, not only are we trying to do something, but the little and very tiny effort we are doing, it's bringing so much. Look at, right now we have the media practitioners having their meeting here at Ibom. I'm sure you are aware. Well over 50 or 60 of them are here. We had the Nigerian Law School, over 100 of them. We have another set of the law school people coming in again, over 100 of them. And that's how it's been back to back. And so the truth is, there is a lot to do. No one should wait to be called upon. Please come on board. There is so much to do. It is a lot of work. It's not something one or two persons can handle. But collectively, we have to make Akwa Ibom State a destination, because it is currently becoming a destination.
Taking advantage of tourism, festivities, and the holidays, and the very good scenery that we have in Akwa Ibom State to also increase our IGR. We've been speaking with the Senior Special Assistant to the Akwa Ibom State Government and the Governor on Tourism, of course, the National President of NATOP. Of course, we've been looking at what are the Akwa Ibom State plans for the festivities. Like you heard her say this morning, there's a lot on the table for us to do. Of course, if you're just joining us, too bad. We're about to just shut down the show this morning, but you can always get back to our YouTube channel to have a scoop of everything she said. Akwa Ibom is a destination for the holidays. Peaceful, very good scenery. The tourism is great. The food is great. The people are even greater. But thank you so much. I must say a really big thank you to you, ma'am, for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Really grateful.
Thank you so much. Tuesday edition of Rise and Shine has been a blockbuster, several conversations touching on the myriad of issues arising out of the country this morning. Please do ensure to go back on all the social media platforms to get a hang of all that we've talked about. My name is Uyai Anyeka, and we'll definitely do this again tomorrow. Stay well and be blessed.